Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Sunday services at Center for Spiritual Living, Denver. We are a loving and prospering community in the heart of Denver and online. We now conduct hybrid services, continuing our transmissions online weekly, as well as meeting in person on the first and third Sunday of each month at the historic Grant Avenue Community Center and Sacred Place, located at 216 South Grant Street, Denver, Colorado. All are welcomed here. A place, space, and face of love. We are a spiritual community practicing universal principles that enrich our lives. We are grateful that you have blessed us with your presence. While online, we'd love to know you're watching with us. Feel free to leave a comment and let everyone appreciate you. With everything going on, life can feel overwhelming. CSL Denver wants you to know we are here for you. Please know that our practitioners are available for personal prayer work. Our licensed spiritual practitioners' names and phone numbers are available on our website at csldenver.org. Or if you have a prayer request, feel free to email it to info@csldenver.org. For your convenience, you'll find clickable links in the description of this broadcast. Rev El Zia, along with all our guest speakers, practitioners, service coordinators, and musical inspirations, want you to know how truly grateful we are that you are with us today. Thank you for your continued support and participation in our services, workshops, and events, as well as providing financial contributions to our center. If you're interested in upcoming events and information, we send out weekly newsletters. Sign up by visiting www.csldenver.org. Presently, on the first and third Sundays of every month, we deliver services in a hybrid format where we meet in person at 216 South Grant Street. We will also continue to live stream all services on Facebook and YouTube every Sunday. Find us on our respective channels as well as on New Thought Media Network. At the conclusion of our service, we welcome you to connect in fellowship. Join us in person on the appropriate Sundays or on Zoom every week. If this will be your first time joining us online, please send an email to info@csldenver.org with fellowship in the subject line. We'll reply with the Zoom link. Again, thank you for your precious attention. Now prepare for engaging enlightenment.
Presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place. Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this
Surely the presence of God is in this place. Good morning. I'm Alice Nutter, a practitioner here at CSL Denver, and I invite you to join me in our opening invocation. And if you feel comfortable doing it, please sit back in your chair and close your eyes and just move into that space and that place that is always here. It is that divine, beloved, holding this space for each and every one of us. And so as we move into this service, we absolutely know that it is truly blessed because surely the presence is in this place. And it is that divine creator that has made this for us. And so as we move into this service and listen to Reverend Mark Gilbert's words and the music of Susan Clark, and just knowing that all is well and that it feeds us however we need to be fed, that we take that out into the rest of our week and our lives, the words of the divine, and knowing that that moves us and lives us. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this time together. I'm so grateful for this teaching. And I'm so grateful for all who have chosen to join us this morning, whether in person or later on in the week. And from that place of deep, deep gratitude, I release this into that one mind, that one heart, knowing that all is well, and it is so. And so it is. And so my reading this morning is from Brene Brown's Rising Strong. During an interview in 2013, a reporter told me that after reading The Gifts of Imperfection and Daring Greatly, he wanted to start working on his own issues related to vulnerability, courage, and authenticity. He laughed and said, "It sounds like it could be a long road. Can you give me the upside of doing this work?" I told him that with every ounce of my professional and personal being, I believe that vulnerability, the willingness to show up and be seen with no guarantee of outcome, is the only path to more love, belonging, and joy. He quickly followed up with, "And the downside?" This time I was the one laughing. "You're going to stumble, fall, and get your ass kicked." There was a long pause before he said, "Is this where you tell me that you think daring is still worth it?" I responded with a passionate yes, followed by a confession. Today it's a solid yes, because I'm not lying face down after a hard fall. But even in the midst of struggle, I would still say that doing this work is not only worth it, it is the work of living a wholehearted life. But I promise that if you asked me about this in the midst of a fall, I'd be far less enthusiastic and way more pissed off. I'm not great at falling and feeling my way back. Why vulnerability is the birthplace of many of the fulfilling experiences we long for, love, belonging, joy, creativity, and trust, to name a few, the process of regaining our emotional footing in the midst of struggle is where our courage is tested and our values are forged. Rising strong after a fall is how we cultivate wholeheartedness in our lives. It's the process that teaches us the most about who we are. The thread that runs through all three of my books, The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, and Rising Strong, is our yearning to live a wholehearted life. I define wholehearted living as engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. It's going to bed at night thinking, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am brave and worthy of love and belonging. And now from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. We have within us a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the outer, a power that can overcome every obstacle in our life. And so it is. And now we go to Susan Clark.
Hello, CSL Denver. Hope everybody's doing really well today. Susan Clark with you once again to provide some special music for your service. I picked out a song today by Janet Stanfield, and as I'm sure a lot of you know by now, Janet is one of my favorite singer-songwriters. When I first started working in New Thought churches as a soloist and a musician, I naturally gravitated towards Janet's songs because I just really loved her style of writing. And a few years ago, I got to meet Janet in person and do a little work with her. And it was like a dream come true to meet one of my mentors face to face. I do want to add that there are some perks to getting older. And one of them for me is that I have definitely learned how to trust the mystery. The universe and my higher power has always provided for me, giving me exactly what I need, exactly when I need it. Even though I don't always recognize that, I've learned to trust the process. So I've definitely learned how to trust the mystery. Helps when you turn the piano on, right? Life is like a good book. You live it page by page. The story of your journey unfolding day by day. Sometimes you see the magic when all the pieces fit. Sometimes you sit there wondering who signed me up for this. There are questions we can't answer, reasons we can't see. You was around the tears, the courage and the fear. You learn to trust the mystery, trust the mystery. When you least expect it, pride will take a stand. We give God a good laugh when we announce our plans. When things don't go our way, we say there must be some mistake. We said our prayers, we've done our best, so what's it gonna take? There are questions we can't answer, reasons we can't see. We watch around the tears, the courage and the fear. We learn to trust the mystery, trust the mystery. Life will be what it will be. Trust the mystery. Set your mind and spirit free. Trust the mystery. Be who you were born to be. Trust the mystery. The only choice that I can see. Trust the mystery. There are questions we can't answer, reasons we can't see. You wash around the tears, the courage and the fear. You learn to trust the mystery, trust the mystery. Life will be what it will be. Trust the mystery. Set your mind and spirit free. Trust the mystery. Be who you were born to be. Trust the mystery. The only choice that I can see. Trust the mystery, trust the mystery, trust the mystery, trust the mystery.
Good morning, everybody. Mark Gilbert here. Great to be back with you at CSL Denver and sharing some thoughts with you this morning. I love that music from Susan and Trusting the Mystery. I hope that we're all living in Trusting the Mystery. I know for the next few minutes, I'm trusting the mystery that I'm going to say something that will be useful to you. And I'm also always curious as to what will come out of my mouth during some of these talks. So I'll trust the mystery in that as well. It's great to be back with you today. Our talk title is entitled Shifting Our Life Perspective. Shifting Our Life Perspective. And what it's really about is about reframing our life events for our greatest growth. You know, I always say when I'm with you that we live in two worlds simultaneously. And I just always have to put this out there to set the context for us, is that we're living in this world of physical stuff and matter, in the world of form, as we often reference it in the science of mind. But we live and are immersed in this physical universe, and it's very mesmerizing to us. And there's events that transpire in this physical world that are positive and we love them and they bring us joy and excitement. And then there's events that are less than what we desire in this world, and we often label them as negative. But what I want you to also see in this is that we live in another world. We live in the world of spirit, the absolute, God, whatever you wish to call it. It's the non-material world as well, a world of consciousness, the world of choice, the world of our spiritual growth and the aspects of that. And so we shift back and forth each moment, but we can be very mesmerized by our life events, which are positive and negative, and we label them within our consciousness. And that's one of the key points that I want to get across this day, is that in every moment as we are moving through this world of form, through the physical world, we make decisions from day to day or moment to moment as to whether we're labeling something that's an experience that we're having as positive or negative or neutral. And when it's positive or neutral, things seem to be okay, but there are these times that we have these what we call failures, something where it didn't work out exactly like our intention was. And then the choice becomes, what are we going to do in that moment? What choice are we going to make relative to those so-called failures? Have you ever failed at anything? I know I have failed at plenty of stuff. I've had a lot of negative experiences. And I'm going to share some of those with you this morning. And when I do, I want you to also be thinking about the failures and that you've had. Maybe there's a life experience that's going on in you right now that's less than what you want. And I want you to hold that in your awareness as we move through some tools to be reframing that, to shift in our life perspective, as I said, regarding those particular life events. You know, it's only human to have these negative experiences. And I want to start with some words from our founder, Ernest Holmes, a couple of quotes. I love the one that Alice shared a few minutes ago from Ernest, but here's a couple of others that I want to anchor into your awareness as we go through the words this morning. Ernest wrote that many people wonder why they fail and why they continue to fail. Failure is not to be thought of as something outside of ourselves. A sense of failure is only the psychological and emotional reaction we have to experiences which are negative. What is Ernest saying here? He's basically telling us that we have a choice in every moment as to how we in our consciousness label the events that are going on in our lives. Some events we're labeling negative, some events we're labeling positive, but it's always a choice as to how we see them, how we frame the meaning and the message and the mystery of these events that are occurring around us. Ernest also wrote that failure does not mean the loss of something. Failure occurs only if the loss of that thing takes our enthusiasm, our courage, our zest for life, our faith, our conviction, and our happiness from us. That is failure indeed. In fact, what Ernest is trying to say in those words is the only true failure is that when we have a negative life experience and we choose to let that event move us to a place where we're not choosing happiness, we're not choosing a zest for life, we're not choosing the best and highest for us. Every moment is this choice. But the only true failure is within our conscious and awareness, we choose to label negative life events in a negative way. So there's three key points that we want to make this morning with you, three key tips or activities that you can do and ways in which you can reframe your life perspective when the so-called negative events go on. And I want to say that not every negative event is seen as a failure. We can have negative events that are just they're a setback, a momentary setback. They could be something where it didn't turn out the way that we wanted. It could and truly be, a failure. But ultimately, we're talking about a life experience that we are labeling negative, and whether we call it a failure or not, if it's something that is a negative experience, then it's one that is an opportunity for us to reframe it. And so what are the 3 points that I want us to make and look at? One is to see the blessing in the negative experience, to take every negative experience, whether it's a failure or whatever, and see and ask for what's the blessing in it. The second one is for us to see the opportunity that it's giving us, because every challenge or negative experience is one that has in its depths some opportunity if we're open to seeing that. And the third point is to know that these negative experiences that we have in our life, that we go through, are simply ways for us to practice resilience, to rebound from them, to learn what we need to learn from those experiences and bounce back from them in a way that allows us to see the joy in our life and to practice that sense of resilience. So that's where we're going for the next few minutes. And now the first one is to see the blessing. And when I think about that, one of the key things that comes up for me is many years ago when I was first launching my career and was working with the federal government, they sent me to a training session on creative problem solving. And there was this guy who was teaching the class, and he was, maybe in his early 60s, and he was giving us lots of skills in creative problem solving. And he said, whenever you encounter a setback or a challenge, you should always ask, what's good about it? What's good about it? And that question always was anchored in my awareness. And I've written about it on my blog site and used it in videos that I produce. I've always anchored in that question about saying what's good about it when I'm having a negative experience. Now, this was even anchored even more in my awareness because this elderly gentleman, after he was, and I say elderly, he was in his 60s, and I'm probably way beyond where he was at that point in his life. But he gave us this description of how he had been married for a long, long time, and told us the story of how much he valued and loved his wife, and how after many, many years of marriage, she got ill and eventually passed on. And the day that he had the funeral for his wife, and he came home and he sat in his house and he's sitting there crying over this event and feeling the deep grief that we all as humans feel it from time to time. And he said, I've been teaching these classes where I tell the students in them to ask what's good about it. And so he had to ask himself, what's good about my wife dying? And he had to sit with that. And as he did, he realized there were a number of things. The joy of all the years of experience that he had to have with her, the love that she had brought into his life, the fact that she was no longer suffering with the illness that she had had, the fact that he knew in his faith system that he was going to be with her at some point, in the non-form again. There were so many things that he could list, that he could see the goodness in this moment. Now, the key thing, of course, is that in these moments, especially ones of deep grief, we have to fill into the grief. That's part of our human experience. Sometimes people will talk about the fact that, one of the problems with just always trying to see the good or see the blessing is that you're not allowing yourself to experience the human emotions that are also a gift for you in the essence of the loss itself. This was really anchored in for me when the loss of a dog, and I've spoken about my dog Harmony. It was a chocolate lab that I'd had for many years, and I've told stories about her before, and some of you who've heard me talk are probably familiar with them. But Harmony came into my life at a point when I was going through a divorce and re-entering the dating arena, and so she brought me company, and she brought me comfort, and she brought me love. And she was so essential to who I was and healing at that point in my life, that all of the changes that were going on. And Harmony not only was essential to healing me, but she played a key role as I entered the world of dating again and dating women, and helped me decide which woman, was one maybe that was right for me and which one wasn't right for me. And in fact, in dating one woman, and I felt like treated Harmony as a second-class citizen to her own dogs, and in that made me realize maybe this woman is not the right one for me. But Harmony helped guide me through this, and Harmony helped find and bring me together with Mary, my current wife, and we've been together 18 years now, and and Harmony was such a blessing to directing me to that relationship and making sure and reaffirming for me what a wonderful relationship it was. And Harmony was there during the early years of our getting together and our marriage, etc. But it was one of the worst days of my life when, having gone through all of the health challenges that she had had and all that I had done with this Doc Gurney up in Aspen Park, for those of you who might remember him. He was a very well-known veterinarian who used both holistic and Western medicine for treating dogs and pets and such. And I had been taking Harmony to Doc Gurney for many years. And Doc Gurney, I always attribute to him, he's now retired, for helping stay and keeping Harmony living for many years. But I know at a certain point that we all recognized that Harmony and all of the limits that was going on with her physical nature, that it was time, that it was getting close for her to make her passage. And the day that she died was the worst day of my life. It said about the feeling of grief and loss. It said about a period of months where I would have this well up of emotions, where I could not stop but couldn't breathe, where I would be crying, and there would be this great pain, a feeling of loss. And so the words that anchored back into me during this time, and I continuously was attempting to try to reframe the events, was to see the blessing in Harmony's passing. And what were those blessings? It was very similar to the teacher I'd had with the creative problem solving class. It was a recognition of the gift of the time and the blessing that Harmony had been to me during the time that we had been together. It was the gift of knowing that she was no longer struggling in the physical form through the life that she had been living, that she had actually gotten to a point where her physical nature was no longer a high quality of life, and that I knew she had released the bounds of this physical form so that she could run freely in the non-physical. And I knew too that I would meet her again. And for those of you who know me, there's also a story about the finding of my current dog, and I have no doubt there is a connection between the two in some form and the non-material, that there is a really connection between my new dog Penny and Harmony. But in this, I was able to actually start healing the process. But the key thing I wanted to also stress again is that in our humanness, when we have losses, we need to learn the lessons and we need to feel the emotions. That's part of the gift of this experience. I did not know grief as a person until I went through that experience. And I can look back on it now and recognize that my deep, deep love for Harmony opened me to feeling the deep, deep levels of grief that I went through for several months, and opened me to the love of a new dog at the right time. And all of that were gifts that Harmony brought me, and so many, so that I could see the blessing of her life, even in the challenge of the loss. So as I've gone through these stories, I hope you've thought about, what's the event going on in your life? Where's there an opportunity for you to see the blessing and maybe some challenge? I'm using some of the salient ones in my own life as a teaching point in this moment. But I can also say there's plenty of times I had to learn from not passing my driver's test the first time, or not getting a job promotion that I thought I was going to get, or submitting something for publication and it not happening. There's all these little minor setbacks that we have all the time that we can dwell on and we can focus on. And when we do that, we know in this teaching that what we give our energy to is what we grow in our lives. And when we focus on the negative events in the physical life, we're using that higher power of the consciousness of the non-physical to bring those thoughts down into creation and create more of the pain and sorrow. Yes, learn from the event, but see the blessing and move on from it. And second tip is to see the opportunity, because every challenge we have has with it an opportunity for the next step and where we're needing to go. And so where is there a challenge in your life? There's an opportunity to be seen from that so-called negative event. One of the experiences that came up for me that in thinking about seeing the opportunity relates back to one of the first jobs I had when I first got out of college. I got married. My first marriage was in college. I had a daughter that was being born. And so bang, 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 within a period of several weeks, I had daughter being born, graduate from college a week later, and then starting a new career in that same week. All of these things were occurring. And as that last year of college, I was really doing all I could get to get a job to make sure that I could have an income coming in for my family. And so one of the things that I was working towards was becoming a teacher. And my first job out of college was teaching high school. And I was blessed to get this position. A lot of people who came out with teaching degrees didn't necessarily get them, but I got this job as a teacher. And it was an inner city high school down in Birmingham, Alabama. And they hired me because I had a psychology degree and they wanted somebody to teach the psychology classes, but they also needed me to teach other things. And that included history classes and things of that nature that I probably wasn't well prepared for, but I dived in and did my best at it. And what happened, was, and there's a lot of this story, that I've told myself over the years, but the essential thing that happened was that the principal who hired me very quickly, for some reasons unknown to me, decided he didn't like me. And I heard this from another person, who was my department chairman. And this principal decided to make things tough on me. And so I had situations where he was constantly changing my schedule. I would do prep for classes that he would then rotate and they would be gone. And, only thing that was a constant during my time at that school were the 2 psychology classes he had hired me to teach. But everything else was a constant shift. And it wore me down because as a new teacher and all of the prep work and all of that, I was feeling very overwhelmed. And that overwhelmed comes through. And I don't know if any of you ever taught, but if you know that if you get down as a teacher, your students see that immediately. They read that energy of you. And I know this now, looking back on it, that the challenges that he was putting on my plate were leading me to having classroom discipline problems where I had no problems at the beginning. I think the students were picking up on where I was and, the fact that, things weren't going well for me and they started challenging me even more, which snowballed it. And I just focused on that and saw that, oh, look at that negativity, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually it got to where I was getting up and just getting sick every morning before I would go to work. And talk about a negative experience. And I'm looking at that going, I've got a new family, I've got to have an income, and I'm having this experience that's making me sick. But I realized that my health came first and I had to do something about it. So I went through a series of activities. I left that job in the middle of the year, knowing that this wasn't the one serving me. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this job per se, but I want to say that I felt the sense of failure for a long time. I felt like the one thing that I had not been able to do was to teach. And I really felt a calling to teach. So where's the opportunity in this? Where did I see the opportunity? Well, one of the things I saw was essentially I needed to get a job. And I used all of my faculties that I had applied in getting that teaching job to get another job. And the next thing I know, I was working at one job, then I got another job that paid a little more, and then I got another job that paid a little more because I had shotgun out into the environment that I had to be a job. And it led to me getting this career with the federal government that went on for over 30 years and was a success for me. And I rose in levels of success. And also through those years, I saw the opportunities to teach, maybe not as a quote unquote teacher in a school, but teaching in the people that I led as a manager, working on the teaching or educational department of the agencies that I work for, making connections that led me to live, working 10 years as a computer class at Red Rocks Community College here in the Denver area. So I always had opportunities to teach. And then when I left that teaching urge within me continued on, so that I'm continuing now teaching New Thought concepts, through CSL Denver and other locations, and as well as online. All of the opportunities came from that early failure. The early failure that I labeled a failure has brought me the opportunity to move forward in them and to bring and see the opportunities to teach and to be successful. Again, failure can lead to opportunity, but we have to reframe the story. We have to reframe the story. The third point that I want to give you this morning is simply the whole idea that failure or negative experiences are an opportunity for us as humans to practice the resilience that's within us. That the divine God wants us to be successful. God wants us to have a glorious and grand life. God wants the world of form to work out for us. But sometimes the world of form is also giving us lessons and messages and experiences that are for our greatest and highest growth. And sometimes these messages and experiences are leading us as these humans, moving spiritual beings in this human experience, to move through and practice the skill of bouncing back and being resilient in life. So where are the negative experiences and challenges that you might be faced with, giving you an opportunity not to wallow in the sense of what is negative in your labeling of your life, but to see the goodness and an opportunity for you to practice resilience and to bounce back. Final story I'm going to tell you is from my own practice. And again, I'm picking the salient stories, ones that are so stuck in my awareness because, they were sort of big human events for me and have really challenged me or offered me the opportunities for challenge, and ones that I have seen the greatest gifts of growth in my own life through. And the one that I often point to is the ending of my first marriage. I mentioned the getting married very young, and I had 5 kids by the time I was 25. And my great side story is that I had a set of triplets. After having 2 daughters, I had 3 sons, triplets. So I had by the age of 25, I had 5 children. And much of that marriage moved into very much taking care of that family. That there was much within me that wanted to ensure the success of my children, that they grew up to be happy and successful. And they did. And much of my first wife was focused on that as well. But one of the things that can come in those kind of processes is that we all have our own needs. And one of the things that I didn't realize until many years later in the years of my marriage was that we had developed an unstated pattern that we individually wanted our own needs met, but we also felt like we had the needs of these children and this family that had to be met first. And so what happens in those situations is that sometimes the one spouse's attention to the needs and ensuring and helping them meet the needs of the other spouse can be lower priority and fall aside. And it was only in a challenge in my first marriage that I really became aware of the fact that my focus and my attention had been on my children came first and their success. All these things that I wanted to do, my career and my hobbies and all of that came next. And then over here to the side was the needs of my spouse. And I learned through the challenges of that marriage that I needed to change that. I needed to recognize that I needed to bounce back and change who I was so that I could be a different spouse. And so we made this recommitment to fix things. And in the fixing of that, I became a very attentive spouse. The thing is that several years later, our marriage actually did end. But during that final period, we recognized, and I think she recognized, that we were not the people that we had been. And that's another interesting thing. We all grow and evolve, and sometimes relationships aren't, where they gel early on. Sometimes we recognize that there's, an opportunity for an expansiveness that's not in the physical form. And the key thing is to recognize that relationship is going to go on forever, but maybe not in together. And so what I had in this was a recognition that I could be resilient to become, and my first wife indicated this, that we had really made efforts to focus on the needs of each other, but that the relationship was such that we no longer felt that we could continue in the relationship. And so in the ending of that relationship and the deepness of depth of sorrow and grief over the ending of something that had gone on for so many years, there was this call for resilience, call to bounce back. And it took a little while. And this is when harmony came into my life that I was talking about earlier. But there was also this process of starting to go out in the dating world and all of that, which if you hadn't been dating for years was a real challenge. And then creating relationships with new people. And eventually, I did meet Mary, and we fell in love and became fast friends and moved forward into the relationship. And like I've said, we've been together for over 18 years now. And it's still a blessing and a success to me. But the resilience that I had to do, if I had laid and wallowed in the sense of failure of the first relationship, I could not have gone into the success of the second one. If I had not taken the lessons I'd heard in the first relationship about not being an attentive spouse, I could not have approached a new relationship with a new way of being and to seeing the needs of the other person and ensuring that they are being met and my role in that. Mary often likes to say she wished she had met me early in her life. And I say to her, I was not the person early in my life that I am now, and probably would not have been the right person for you in that point in time. But the key message that I want in telling you this story, other than, my life's salient challenges, which, hopefully has been somewhat semi-entertaining for the last few minutes, is to really anchor into what are the challenges that you're faced with. Where are the things in the world of form where you have had these setbacks? They can be big, like divorce and death and things that I've been describing here, or they can be minor setbacks that we have every day in our life. Every moment offers us an opportunity to practice seeing the blessing in it, knowing that there is a gift somewhere in the challenge that we're having in our physical lives, knowing that there is an opportunity for us, an opportunity to grow and expand and to take my life to higher levels of being through the experiences that I'm going through. And thirdly, is a human moving through this human experience to anchor ourselves in that spiritual awareness that we are anchored in truth and oneness through the spiritual teachings that we have here, and know that life can't give us anything that we can't handle. And with that is a bouncing back into the world of our physical lives with a resilience, with that anchor of spiritual truth within us that knows that our life can continue to grow and evolve. Where are you challenged this day? Where can you see the blessing in it, see the opportunity in it, and see the chance for you to have the ability to bounce back and practice the resilience that it's at the heart of your soul? Each and every one of us have that. I leave you today with an affirmation that we can all affirm as we move through this process. I'll say it a couple of times just to anchor it in our awareness. I persevere with the strength of the Spirit within me. I persevere with the strength of the Spirit within me. I persevere with the strength of the Spirit within me. Let's pray. We just move into a sense of that oneness, that divine flow. We shift our attention from the world of form upward into the world of spirit, into the world of the oneness of all that is. We know that as we knock about in this world of affairs where everything appears separate and in relation to one another, that we know that our truth is anchored in that divine aspect of the absolute God, spirit, infinite intelligence, which always guides us and gives us tools and abilities to navigate in this world and to learn the lessons that are ours. We're here to learn. And so I know as we move forward this day that each and every person who listens to these words this day is looking out at their life and evaluating the circumstances in it now, where there is a call for them to learn and to grow, where there's an opportunity for them to see the gift and the blessing in the experience, to see the opportunity that is giving them to grow and evolve, and knowing that they have the ability within them to bounce back and be resilient in this human experience. That every one of these situations, we are turning higher. Our attention and focus is upward in spirit. And we're knowing that when we anchor in that, we know that God is always providing for us. And that we look out on our events of our life and allow them to be the gifts that they truly are. And to move through anything that is less than, any setback, anything that we are labeling negative, we move through it with grace and ease. We feel into it for the grief and the pain and the learnings that they are calling us in our human experience to give us those gifts, but we're also allowing ourselves to expand and to grow and to be the highest expression of who we are in each and every moment. And for this, I just give thanks and I release these words, knowing that they are so, and so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Mark. Resilience, very important. Excuse me. And I typed your affirmation into the comments so people will have that. So as long as I persevere with the right amount of letters.
As long as they know what you wrote.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So we are going to be moving into our offertory. We are so, so grateful and blessed for everyone's support of CSL Denver. Hold on just one sec. I am having to move my document over here. So we are so grateful and blessed for everyone's support of CSL Denver, whether it's in time, treasure, or talent, and especially during this time of change. Whether this is your first time joining us or you are a returning community participant, we want to thank you for your continuing financial support of the important work we are striving to provide. Right now, there are several ways you can make your financial contribution to Center for Spiritual Living Denver. This information is running along the bottom of the screen. You can either do text to give, or go to our website and click on the donate button, or send a check to our P.O. box. And like I said, all of these are running along the bottom of the screen. So I invite you now to repeat with me our usual affirmation. Take your gift, or if not, just hold your hand to your heart and just hold that. And just know that this perfect gift is spirit in form, circulating and blessing all that it touches. Freely I give, and joyously I receive. And so it is. And we have just a few announcements. Our usual virtual fellowship is on Zoom this morning. We would love for you to come and join us and let us know how you're doing. If you did not receive the Zoom invitation earlier this morning, please send an email to info@csldenver.org and mention fellowship, and we'll send you a Zoom invitation right away. Also, if you, like me, are needing some good news of the world to offset some of the other stuff going on, New Thought Media Network has a program on Friday evenings at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and it's called And Now the Good News. I invite you to check it out and be uplifted. It's on www.ntmedia.org. Meanwhile, we hope you have a wonderful week. This is a beautiful fall weekend here in Denver, Colorado, and I hope it is everywhere else for whoever is watching, except those in the Southern Hemisphere. And so affirm right here and right now that 2022 is blessed and perfect in all that it is. We love you and hope that you, like I said, have a wonderful week. Please take care of yourselves, and let's close out with Michael Gott singing, I Release and I Let Go.
There was a time in my life, thought I had to do it all for myself. Didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. I didn't know the love of God was at hand. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you gotta let it go. You gotta let it go. You gotta let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. Let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience, or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@nbn.org.